It is with great pleasure and delight that I now invite the founder of Africa-Israel Initiative, a great brother and friend of mine, also the leader of the Conservative Party of Norway, Reverend Honorable Eric Selle, to the stage. Please give him a hand clap as he comes in.
Your Excellency Ambassador Avraham Negusi, Your Excellency Father Luison Bisila, honorable members of parliament, distinguished guests, welcome to the first ever Africa-Israel Parliamentary Summit. This has been a dream for many, many years. And we are living in a very critical time of history. And as believers of the Bible, you are not afraid, because it is all written. Together here we have gathered 25 nations of Africa, which is half of the continent. In the middle, we have the country from the center of the earth that is in the centrality of our faith and of what God is doing, Israel. Let us welcome Israel in a special way. And we want to tell our guests from Israel, you are literally sitting in the middle among friends. And I want you to feel that friendship, because specifically since October 7, the enemies of Israel has made a lot of noise. They trampled the streets, specifically, strangely enough, in Western countries. And it seems like evil is prevailing. But we are here to announce that evil will not prevail. The good will win. I'm looking forward to 2 days of elaboration and discussions. I encourage you to use all the breaks, the dinners, to network with each other. You're all influential people in your nations and on this continent and beyond. And the key to victory is actually networking. The key to victory is building an alliance of friends of Israel, of the good, to fight the evil in our day. This is our watch. If good men and women do nothing, evil will prevail. But it only takes a match to light up a dark room. All of you are that match. All of you are that candle that can light up this world. And this conference is just the beginning. This conference is just the beginning of nations rising up for Israel. Because we are not only standing for Israel, we are standing for the survival of the free world. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are the key, because it's your watch now. I'm very happy to announce that we also have observer representatives from the Kurdish government here. We have been in close dialogue with India, and they really would like to be here. There are so many nations in this world that will take this fight with us. And we are going to start rebuilding the free world. And in the center of that free world is Israel. And I believe that Africa is the future. I believe that the decision you make in Africa is going to define the future of the world. This is the time for Africa. Now it's my great honor and joy to welcome the official opening of this summit by the representative of the government of Israel in Ethiopia, His Excellency Ambassador Avraham Negusi. Please give him a warm welcome. He will speak for 15 minutes.
Thank you. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace with your walls and security with your own towers. Psalms chapter 122. Honorable members of Parliament from across Africa, honorable members of the Israeli Knesset in Jerusalem, honorable bishops, honorable pastors, distinguished guests from the African continent, from Europe, from America, and from Israel. It is my pleasure to open this impressive conference full of friends of Israel, a group of dozens of members of parliament from countries across Africa, with shared values holding them together, namely support for the state of Israel, the Holy Land, and its just battle for security and survival. Support for the state of Israel. I am happy to welcome you here in Ethiopia, for security, which represents one of the ancient origins of the African connection with Israel. It is from this area that 3,000 years ago, a queen, the Queen of Sheba, marked upon a journey to a faraway land and arrived in the King Solomon's court in Jerusalem. The connection which began then between Israel and Ethiopia is unbreakable bond which has seen echoed throughout the African continent, as can be very clearly seen by those in attendance at this conference today. Israel and Africa have an ancient and meaningful relationship. Our connection encompasses history, culture, faith, and shared interests. In terms of the Bible, the children of Israel had a special relationship with Africa. And in fact, the continent provided a sense of food security. And in fact, for our ancestors, when there was famine back home and they crossed into Africa for survival. In modern times as well, Jewish leaders have seen a close connection between Israel and Africa. The father of the Jewish state, Theodor Herzl, wrote, and I quote, "Once I have witnessed the redemption of the Jews, my people, I wish also to assist in the redemption of the Africans." End of quote. Since the birth of the modern state of Israel in 1948, our engagement with Africa has included diplomatic outreach, development and cooperation, activities on diverse issues. Starting in the 1950s, our then Foreign Minister Golda Meir pushed for an increased Israeli presence in Africa, recognizing that Israel and Africa shared both challenges and opportunities. In those years, Israel began establishing strong relationships with the newly emerging African states, which had recently gained independence from colonialism. Israel, too, had gained independence from the British mandate, and after 2,000 years of foreign rule in our homeland. In those early years of our statehood, our government already realized that importantness of cooperating with Africa, sharing development experiences, and building the bonds between nations. Since those early days, Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, has remained active in building practical bridges between Israel and Africa, working on diverse projects in the fields of agriculture, education, health, technology, and more. Additionally, various Israeli NGOs and private sector companies have maintained a strong presence across Africa throughout the decades, creating mutual beneficial partnerships that address common challenges, including food security, climate change, technology, renewable energy, healthcare, innovation, and counter-terrorism. Our shared challenges sprout new opportunities for collaboration and for the benefit of our regions and the world. When I served as a member of the Israeli Knesset in 2015 to 2019, we inaugurated a caucus for a relation between Israel and African countries in the presence of the Prime Minister and Speaker of the Knesset. During my time as a parliamentarian, I had the privilege of taking parliamentary delegations to the African continent, to both East and West. In addition, I had the honor to accompany the Prime Minister in his visits to Africa, and also the President in his visit to Ethiopia. As an Ethiopian-born Israeli, as a former member of the Israeli Parliament, and as now Israeli ambassador in Ethiopia, I can appreciate the importance of your work. The relationship between Israel and Africa is vital for the mutual benefit of our peoples. Today, Israel is once again at war. On October 7, 2003, Hamas and its allies carried out a terrorist invasion of Israel, resulting in the bloodiest day for the Jewish people since the Nazi Holocaust. This has pulled Israel into a battle whose goals are the destruction of Hamas, the return of our 101 remaining hostages, and the restoration of security for our people. Make no mistake, Hamas and its allies in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias of Iraq, and other proxies across the region are all armies of the Iranian regime, axis of terror. The terror we face is simply another type of terror many countries in Africa are facing. And together, we must fight it. This is a war being waged by the forces of darkness, whose vision is chaos and destruction, against the force of light, moderation, and coexistence. Israel, the home of the Jewish people, is also a multi-ethnic and a multi-faith society which protects the rights and holy sites of all religions and provides freedom of worship to Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Israel is also the birth of Christianity and, of course, the place where the Bible occurred. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. You, together, gathered here today, are a blessing for Israel and a blessing for Africa. As we pray for the peace and security of Jerusalem, we are grateful for your prayers and your actions coming from across the continent. You know what? The survival and prosperity of Israel mean to the world. And we are counting on you and your voices to make it clear that the future of Israel is directly tied to the future of Africa. As it is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 62, verse 1, for Zion's sake, I will not keep silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not remain quiet. Thank you again for your friendship. Thank you, to the African-Israel Initiative, the Israeli Alliance Foundation, and the Think Initiative for International Cooperation for putting this conference together. Many blessings, and may it be a successful week. Shalom to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. As you well know the Bible, it says in the prophet Zechariah, I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. So I will ask you, if God dwells in the midst of Jerusalem, why would you want to divide Jerusalem. Because God is not part of dividing that city. And if God dwells in the midst of Jerusalem, why would you want to have your nation's ambassador in Tel Aviv? And in 2012, Africa-Israel Initiative was founded. Out of the 5 founding fathers, we are 2 here today, whereas president is Bishop Joshua Mulinge from Kenya. Our headquarters is in Kenya. And what we started to do was threefold. Our mission is to teach the church how God looks at Israel. We cannot have anti-Semitism in the church. Secondly, we saw that at least before COVID, 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world were in Africa. And Israel has the tool that Africa needs to develop your nations. Why on earth would Africa side with terrorist and destructive nations when the nation you need to develop your country, to bring your people out of poverty, to be strong, to be a leader in the UN instead of following others, why would you not stand with Israel in a way that Israel feel? So we started to bring Israeli companies to Africa. It was such a joy. I was sitting with the mayor of one of the capitals of a nation in Africa. I had some Israelis with me, and I asked her, "What does your city need?" She said, "My capital needs streetlights." And immediately the Israeli said, "Well, in Israel I have 2-3 companies that make streetlights with a solar panel on top. You don't need the infrastructure, you don't need the cables, everything. We can put up these streetlights in any street you want." Exactly what the mayor needed. As partners, how many kilometers of streetlights do you want in this city? Secondly, this capital had a lot of dirt roads. She said that's a problem for health, and it's for communication, transportation. And the Israeli said, in Israel we had a couple of businesses that makes epoxy roads, 1/3 of the price, 3 times as fast. Very hands-on cooperation between Israel and Africa can spiral Africa into the future. I brought together with my team an Israeli green energy company that in 4 countries are now building solar energy systems and the wind energy systems for 4 capitals in this continent. Israel has what you need to develop. And you shouldn't look to Europe, you shouldn't look to America, you shouldn't look to the past. You need to look to the future. And for Africa, Israel is the future. Thirdly, Israel needs friends. Back in 2015, Africa-Israel Initiative partnered with the Israel Allies Foundation, and we established the first Israel Allies Caucus in Uganda. Clap for Uganda. And since then, we have established in 19 countries Israel Allies Caucuses officially registered and acknowledged in their parliaments. So this journey together with the Israel Allies Foundation has been a very successful one. Now we're in a situation where Israel is fought on 2 fronts, one militarily, but the other by law. It's not by law, it's twisting of the law, it's fabrication of the law, it's illegal interpretation of the law, up to real evil stupidity. Then we need experts and think came into the picture. Lawyers based in The Hague that are expert on international law. And I encourage you to engage with Peter these days. Think really wants to assist. And by the way, Uganda has a great lawyer. Africa is already showing the way. In my country, Himanshu can confirm, everybody was looking to Uganda. The only judge that makes sense was African. Clap for Africa. So you're already on the right path. When you have a big brother, think about your home, your village, your city. If you have a big brother, and you know, big sisters and big brothers always carry a burden for their siblings. So imagine you have a big brother or a big sister that are being bullied and harassed and beaten. And you sit there and you say, "Oh, I love my brother, let me go visit his house. I love him." But you're not there for him in the fight. What feeling will that create in the heart of your big brother? We know that Israel is our big brother, who has carried a big burden for all of us to know the gospel. It is our obligation and our duty as church, as individuals, and as nations to make sure that they, on the international stage, see their friends rallying around them. Every single legitimate UN resolution supports Israel. International law, Israel is planted, maybe the one nation in the world that actually is in the center of international law when it comes to its establishment. I pray that this conference will be one channel to see a change. I'm very glad we have a member of parliament from Norway. Pray for us, because we have a big job to do in Norway and in Europe. And we need Africa. I'm telling you, Europe needs Africa. America needs Africa. You can put our continent back on the right track. And it's a joy for me to present to you my very good friend, the director of Israel Allies Foundation, Mr. Josh Reinstein. And I want to appreciate him so that you know the cooperation between us has been significant to get to this day.
Hello, and welcome to the first ever Pan-Africa-Israel Parliamentary Summit. I'm Josh Reinstein. I'm the president of the Israel Allies Foundation and director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus. I want to thank our partners, Eric Sella from the Africa-Israel Initiative, and also Andrew Tucker from Think. As well, I want to thank Dennis Tumbe, the African director of the Israel Allies Foundation. I want to recognize the chairperson of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, Sharon Haskel, and of course, a member of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, member of Knesset Amit Halevi. This is a historic event that's happening right now. We have parliamentarians from all over Africa here today in Ethiopia to stand with Israel. The Israel Allies Foundation is dedicated to what we call faith-based diplomacy, when people take their biblical support for Israel and turn it into real political action. And I can say that faith-based diplomacy is Israel's most important diplomatic arsenal around the world. It's the reason we have embassies in Jerusalem. It's the reasons we have observer status in the African Union. It's the reasons we have anti-BDS and anti-Semitism legislation all over the world, because people like you have come together to stand with God's covenant with Israel. Now, we have 53 Israel Allies caucuses around the world and 1,500 legislators in our network, but in Africa specifically, we have 19 caucuses. And those caucuses are some of the most important strategic allies that we have around the world. The relation between Israel and Africa on a practical level is of the utmost importance. Strategically, we have some of the top technologies in agriculture, in biotechnology, in telecom, in cybersecurity, in weaponry, in all different facets. The reason that Kenya is the #1 exporter of flowers is because they use Israeli drip irrigation systems. And so we have the technology, but Africa has the natural resources and also a very hard-working population. When you put those two together, there's really nothing that can't be done. Now, the enemies of Israel have tried to thwart that relationship. They've tried to stop us from working together. But people of faith understand that it's more important to be biblically correct than politically correct. And so today, people of faith, members of parliament from all over Africa are coming together to say, enough is enough. We're going to stand with Israel. So how can legislators practically stand with Israel? Well, the first thing that we need to always do is align our actions with God's words. And what does God say? He says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Why does God ask us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem? God doesn't need us to pray for something for him. We pray to God for health, for wealth, for success. But one time God says, no, pray for something for me. So why? Well, the Jewish sages say the reason God asks us to pray for peace of Jerusalem is that he wants us to keep our focus on Jerusalem. He wants us to tell our children about Jerusalem. He wants us to talk to our churches and our synagogues about Jerusalem all the time, because God is fulfilling his prophecy in Jerusalem. Everything that we believe is going to happen in Jerusalem. And so the first thing that African nations need to understand is they need to focus their intentions on Jerusalem and move their embassies to Jerusalem. We've seen embassies moved from the United States of America, several in South America. We've even seen Papua New Guinea, Kosovo, but none from Africa yet. And it's time that Africa leads the way and recognize the Jewish people's right to the undivided capital of Jerusalem. Second, we need to broaden our relationship. There's been many attempts to kick Israel out of observer status in the African Union. It's because of people of faith like you that we have observer status in the African Union. We need to broaden those relationships. We need more bilateral relationships. We need pan-continental relationships. We need to work country to country, nation to nation, and build more economic prosperity for both our people. And third, we need to understand what is our threat. And our threat is Iran. Iran is coming into Africa. They're buying up resources. They're influencing politics. We need to say enough is enough. We don't want the oil money of Iran. We don't want the radical Islamic country of Iran to influence Africa. We want that partnership with Israel. So as legislators, you are in a unique position to take these issues and bring them to your parliaments and get things done. This, as I mentioned at the beginning, is just the first of our Pan-African conferences. We are going to do more Africa-Israel conferences. We're going to do one in Jerusalem soon, and we need to mobilize all of the parliamentary groups together. Our chairmen from across Africa, together with the members of parliaments in Africa, need to work together with the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, with the government of Israel, and see how we can build a better relationship. Now, as Jews and Christians, we believe that God's blessings will come to us. God says he will bless those who bless thee and curse those who curse thee. So we need to understand that God's blessing is for us to take. And as Jews and Christians, we believe in these values more than anyone else in the world. They're the reason for our success, our prosperity, the foundation of the Judeo-Christian civilization that we share. We must only come together to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might, as we're commanded to do, and we shall prevail. And Christians and Jews will share in God's blessings together. Thank you again for coming together, and I look forward to welcoming you next year, but next year in Jerusalem.
The Africa-Israel Initiative was a vision given in Johannesburg, South Africa in November 2011. Founder and first president is Pastor Erik Seller from Norway. Through the partnership with the Africa Revival Summit, the ministry of the Africa-Israel Initiative was officially launched in Zambia in April 2012. The vision implementation was constituted by the founding fathers: Apostle Samuel Gordon, South Africa; Pastor Israel Sekomata, Uganda; Bishop Joshua Mulingi, Kenya; Apostle Samuel Malambo, Zambia; and Pastor Emmanuel Nteomba, Rwanda. After the opening in Lusaka in 2012, a conference was organized in Johannesburg, South Africa the following year. The annual Pan-African Summit continued in Nairobi, Kenya. Kigali in Rwanda. Accra in Ghana. And Port Harcourt in Nigeria. Africa-Israel Initiative has built the ministry on a number of key initiatives. 1. Teaching God's love for Israel to the church. 2. Building national branches across Africa and beyond. 3. Advocating for Israel to the political community and heads of states. 4. Strengthening economical ties and promoting business initiatives. 5. Launching Israel Allies caucuses across the continent. 6. Strengthening cultural ties and people-to-people meeting opportunities by hosting annual Israel pilgrim tours. Seven. Bringing African senior church leaders to Christian leadership seminar at Yad Vashem. 8. Emphasizing on annual prayer day for Jerusalem, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and raising support for Aliyah from anti-Semitic hotspots. 9. Bringing awareness to recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The first head office was located in Oslo, Norway. In 2017, Africa-Israel Initiative moved the headquarters to Nairobi, Kenya. And in April 2018, Bishop Joshua Mulingi was commissioned president of AAI, with Apostle Samuel Malambo as vice president. July 4, 2016, Prime Minister His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu and Uganda President His Excellency Yoweri Museveni met for the memorial ceremony of the rescuing of hostages at Entebbe, where Bibi's brother Yonatan Netanyahu died 40 years before. The same day, a heads of state meeting was conducted with 7 heads of states in Africa, meeting the Israeli Prime Minister. This was the first visit in Africa by an Israeli Prime Minister in over 20 years.
Africa is a continent on the rise. Israel looks forward to strengthening ties with all its countries. Many African leaders visit Israel, and I'm proud to be the first Israeli Prime Minister in over 20 years, to come to visit Sub-Saharan Africa. after many decades, I can say unequivocally, Israel is coming back to Africa, and Africa is coming back to Israel.
Through the years, Africa-Israel Initiative has conducted and hosted seminars and conferences for army and police personnel on ethical values in the Bible related to law-upholding forces. Africa-Israel Initiative has brought technology and innovation to Africa from Israel, like Gigawatt Global in Zambia and South Sudan, as well as connecting parliaments to the Israeli Knesset. Africa-Israel Initiative is a Christian ministry based on the biblical mandate in Genesis 12 verses 1 to 3. Zechariah 8:13. Psalms 122 verse 6. And Isaiah 40 verses 1 to 2. Israel is a mystery yet to be fully unveiled. But in the manner we treat the firstborn son, our Father will treat us. Also, God has submerged into Israel a promise of blessing to the world. God's blessings to the world is connected to the way the world responds to the blessings deposited in and through Israel. That is why Africa-Israel Initiative is biblically mandated to bring this good message of God's love for Israel and Africa, as promised in the Bible, into all sectors of society, as it matters to all of us. This is the time for Africa, and this is the time for Israel.
Education equips, experience empowers, faith-based support inspires. In 2004, as the Intifada raged and nations turned against Israel as it strove to defend its citizens, it was Christians, not countries, that stood with Israel. Today, Israel is fighting a battle for its very existence against Hamas and the nefarious Iranian regime. While many world leaders have turned against the Jewish state, the tide of support is shifting as men and women of faith in governments across the globe are speaking out in Israel's defense. The Israel Allies Foundation works to educate and empower pro-Israel, faith-based legislators worldwide. We call this faith-based diplomacy. The IAF mobilizes support for Israel by establishing pro-Israel groups or caucuses in legislative bodies around the world. Today in the United States, the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus has over 80 members. Its leadership and members have included former Vice President Mike Pence, who served as caucus chairman, and former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Internationally, more than 50 additional caucuses encompass a network of over 1,500 legislators. The foundation ensures they are equipped with the tools they need to support and defend Israel in every possible way, to pave the way for embassies to be moved to Jerusalem, to fight an increasingly dangerous Iranian regime, to counter anti-Israel institutions like UNRWA and push back against anti-Israel policies aimed at the only democracy in the Middle East. These leaders stand shoulder to shoulder with the nation that fights every day to defend our shared values. Our international network of faith-based legislators is battling to keep a united Jerusalem on the political front line. From an annual celebration of Jerusalem Day in Washington, D.C. and in capitals worldwide, to encouraging faith-based political advocacy for Jerusalem. Every year, the Foundation gathers these legislators in Jerusalem to meet with Israeli political leaders and policy experts. They discuss the most critical issues facing Israel today and discuss both political and biblical-based support for Israel. These international leaders tour the Israeli capital and the biblical heartland, witnessing the deep Jewish historical and biblical connection to the land and the complex realities of the region firsthand. The Israel Allies Foundation has emerged as the key organization providing legislators and parliamentarians with critical knowledge vital to the survival of Israel and the Jewish people. Now is the time to empower our leaders. Men and women of faith are eager to speak out for Israel and for the values we share. The Israel Allies Foundation is there to support them, recognizing Jerusalem as the undivided, true, eternal capital of Israel, educating legislators on the truth of what is happening on the ground and what is really going on in the land of the Bible, and standing against the tide of anti-Israel hatred and anti-Semitism in order to take history-changing action. Join us and be a part of this diplomatic Iron Dome for Israel. Become one of our many partners as we work together to defend the only democracy in the Middle East, the Jewish state of Israel.